It's open! Ah!
The creature is outside my door right now. I'm in this derelict Forest Service cabin near the Idaho border, hiding in the laundry closet. I haven't heard a footstep, not a breath, but I can feel the pressure of it through the thin plywood. It's making the air cold, unnaturally cold, and I can hear a high, subtle whine starting up in my skull. I know it's waiting. It doesn't need to break the door down. It just needs me to open my eyes and give it what it wants. It all started 3 weeks ago. I was the guy, Elias Vance, who testified before the special UAP committee. I was an analyst, and I saw the raw telemetry data. I watched footage the public never knew existed. I knew the official narrative was pure fiction, and I made the decision to release the Vance dossier. It was the right thing to do, I thought. I was a patriot. The leak went live on a Tuesday. I felt the instantaneous relief, like dropping a 100-pound weight. Then the paranoia kicked in. I expected black vans, government agents, a knock on the door. Instead, the silence was deafening. Nothing happened for a whole week, and that's when I started feeling uneasy. It felt like waiting for a delayed trap. The first thing that broke was the data. Not the leaked data, which was safely distributed, but my personal backups. My thesis documents, my family photos, just random files that turned into corrupted static. It wasn't malware. It was surgical, targeted deletion. 1,000 files, all erased at the exact same timestamp, 3:07 a.m. My apartment started feeling wrong. You know that feeling when the noise floor drops out completely? The humming of the fridge, the distant traffic, it all faded. It wasn't silent, it was overly silent. I'd walk from the kitchen to the bedroom and the air felt dense, heavy, like I was moving through water. Then came the call. My cell rang, displaying unknown caller. When I answered, there was just heavy static, a sound like a distant jet engine filtered through sand. Then, a single, perfectly pitched tone, sustained for 4 seconds. It wasn't a human voice. It was a frequency, and it resonated right behind my eyes. I dropped the phone immediately. I noticed the street lamps. I took a walk one evening just to clear my head, and I saw it. A municipal street lamp, flickering wildly. It wasn't the bulb, it was the entire unit powering on and off rapidly. I walked away, and when I looked back, it stopped. The next night, I took a different route. A different street lamp, same exact rapid, rhythmic strobing. It was following me. The neighbors started changing. Old Mr. Henderson, who always complained about my recycling schedule, suddenly stared at me in the hall for 3 full seconds without blinking. I asked him if he was all right. He responded, slowly, "Yes, Elias. The flow is satisfactory." Then he turned and walked into his apartment, slamming the door. The flow? What was that? I checked my building's external security camera footage. I rewind the tape to the night of the data corruption. I see the camera view of my fire escape. For exactly 0.3 seconds, a shape passes directly over the lens. It's impossible. It's too dense, too black, and it moves without blurring, like the frames were replaced by pure shadow. That's when the calculation clicked. The government doesn't silence whistleblowers by altering their neighbors or glitching streetlights. They use legal leverage, or maybe a convenient car accident. This wasn't a human intelligence operation. This was the source of the UAP data, the subject itself, trying to close the information breach. I found a piece of evidence on my kitchen counter this morning. It wasn't mine. It looked like highly compressed charcoal, but geometrically perfect, a tetrahedron resting on one vertex. I picked it up, and it was unnaturally cold, even under the morning sun spilling into the room. It felt impossibly dense, like a piece of neutron star material. I sealed the object in an anti-static bag and placed it in my safe. I went to the dining room to plan my escape route. But I kept hearing it. A faint, internal rhythmic vibration, like a tiny drum beat right inside my chest cavity. I realized it wasn't coming from me. It was coming from the safe, amplified by the tetrahedron. I had to check it. I opened the safe. The object pulsed once, a silent flash of light that felt like sound. The rhythmic vibration intensified into a sharp, piercing mental wave. I wasn't hearing it with my ears, I was receiving data. Complex equations, diagrams of space-time metrics, history of things that aren't supposed to exist, all streaming into my brain. I gasped and opened my eyes. I was no longer alone. Standing perfectly still in the middle of my living room was the source of the shadow, the auditor. Tall, slender, graphite skin reflecting nothing, large black eyes focused entirely on me. It hadn't come in the door. It had materialized when I interacted with the tetrahedron. It raised one impossibly long, delicate hand, palm facing me. There was no verbal command, but the thought filled my head, clear and precise: stop the flow. The breach is internal. The entity wasn't trying to erase the files I leaked, it was trying to shut down the connection I had just established by touching its artifact. I finally understood Mr. Henderson's comment. That the flow wasn't data leakage from the government. It was the fundamental energy, the profound, cosmic knowledge I had accidentally accessed. The auditors were galactic librarians, and I was a book that was suddenly open and broadcasting their entire catalog. They needed to close me. I bolted toward my emergency gear. As I ran, the physical laws seemed to slightly resist my movement. The floor felt spongy, the air thick. When I tried to open the door, the mechanism jammed, not broken, but subtly offset, requiring significant, confusing effort to turn the knob. Every step was a fight against the environment. I reached my car and started driving. I chose a remote, nondescript location far north. As soon as I left the city limits, the streetlights began their synchronized performance again. Every light pole, from one horizon to the next, was flashing a complex, rapid code, a visual noise meant to confuse and redirect me. It was dazzling and disorienting. 50 miles out, I pulled into a dilapidated gas station for fuel. As I reached for the pump handle, I glanced at the display. Instead of showing gallons or price, the digital readout was flickering between Arabic numerals and highly ornate, alien hieroglyphs. I paid cash quickly, avoiding the attendant's oddly placid gaze. I tried to call my sister as I drove farther into the wilderness. My phone was dead. Not out of battery, the screen was on, but it was filled with pure, structured static, repeating geometric patterns that were somehow beautiful and terrifying at once. The isolation was complete. I was cut off from human communication. My destination was a cabin my grandfather owned, abandoned since the 80s, completely off-grid. When I arrived, the wooden structure looked impossibly small and vulnerable against the towering, silent pines. It was cold inside. I checked the windows, verifying the integrity of the warped wooden shutters. I felt momentarily safe. I used heavy metal brackets I brought to secure the front door. I pulled out my camping stove and boiled some water. The sense of calm lasted perhaps 30 minutes before the temperature dropped. Not a gradual cooling, but a sudden, pervasive, deep cold that penetrated my thick layers. It was the same cold I felt around the tetrahedron. I knew it had arrived. It didn't walk, it simply manifested its presence near me. I grabbed my bag and crawled into the small laundry closet. Then I heard the sound, not footsteps, but a profound, slow press against the thin wall near the front door. Whatever the auditor was, it was massive, or at least capable of exerting massive force without friction. I'm back here, in the closet. The whine in my head is constant now, a psychic low-grade buzz. It's not trying to destroy the cabin. It's not interested in the physical door. It wants the data, the flow I'm holding internally. It's waiting for me to panic, to open my mind for just 1 second so it can download what it needs and finally close the cosmic book. I just have to stay quiet. The thing is small. It fits in my palm, pulsing slowly, cycling through colors I didn't know existed. They call it knowledge, but it feels more like a terrible, beautiful weight. I haven't slept in 72 hours. I know things now, things about history, about God, about why we're even here, and the sheer weight of that truth is crushing me. My phone is wrapped in foil, sitting in a paint can. They told me that once I held this, I would be visible. And they were right. I can hear the humming, the vibration in the desert floor outside my shop. It's here. It wants the knowledge back. It all started 3 days ago, Monday morning. I run a salvage and heavy repair yard just outside of Tonopah, Nevada. Mostly decommissioned farm equipment and old military surplus. I was using the forklift to clear out the west sector, the part of the yard I hadn't touched in 5 years, when I noticed a shimmer. It looked like heat haze, but it was 6 a.m. The air was cool. When I got closer, the shimmer resolved into something impossible, a crumpled sphere of perfectly smooth, matte black material. It was maybe 8 feet across, sitting awkwardly in the sand like an oversized, dented bowling ball. It had crashed. I've seen missile parts, titanium alloys, depleted uranium, I know metal. This wasn't metal. It felt cold, but the sun didn't reflect off it. It swallowed the light. I spent the next 2 hours trying to move it. My biggest tow rig couldn't budge it, even though the weight calculations based on its size suggested it should only be a few thousand pounds. It felt anchored to the center of the earth. I used a grinder on a small protruding edge, hoping to get a sample. The wheel sparked, but the surface remained utterly flawless. The smell was the strangest part, ozone and fresh rain, even though the air was bone dry. I decided to walk around the perimeter, just checking if there was a trail of wreckage. That's when I saw the gap. A sliver, barely an inch wide, had opened up in the sphere, near the base where it had hit the ground. It was just deep enough to cast a shadow, and within that shadow, I saw movement. Tiny, flickering silver light. My heart kicked up. I'm a rational guy, but the hairs on my arms were standing straight up. I got my heaviest flashlight, clicked it on, and shone the beam into the crevice. Nothing. Just smooth, dark walls. I was about to dismiss it as fatigue when a sound, like dry leaves rustling across concrete, came from the junk pile 10 feet away. I swung the light over. That's where I saw the pilot. Huddled between two discarded water heaters, breathing shallowly. It was impossible to process. 4 feet tall, rail thin, with skin like polished coal and those immense, liquid eyes. It looked weak, fragile. The silver lines beneath its skin were dim, almost out. I took a hesitant step toward it. It didn't recoil. Instead, it raised a tiny, 3-fingered hand toward the black sphere, then pointed back at me. It was communicating, but not with sound. I felt a pressure behind my eyes. I stood there, desert mechanic meets extraterrestrial, and understood 2 things instantly. It needed help, and the ship was its only way home. And somehow, my specific, mundane skill set, fixing things that break, was what it required. The telepathic nudge wasn't a request, it was a desperate plea for engineering assistance. It felt absurd, like asking a plumber to fix a quantum computer, but the intent was clear. I managed to roll the sphere into the main bay using the combined effort of 2 winches and a lot of swearing. The pilot followed, dragging its thin legs behind it. It directed me to the damaged section. It wasn't a structural problem, it was internal. Something about a harmonic regulator. I just nodded, pretending I knew what that meant, and grabbed my toolbox. The pilot guided me, using precise mental imagery. No language, just diagrams burned into my mind. Twist the copper wire here, connect the carbon conduit there. It was like fixing a clock using entirely foreign physics. The sphere felt like it was breathing. Whenever I successfully connected a circuit, the silver lines on the pilot's body would glow a little brighter. It was using my effort as energy. On Tuesday afternoon, 24 hours in, I was exhausted. I was running on vending machine coffee and pure adrenaline. The final repair required me to manually align 2 humming, crystalline rods that refused to stay put. I had to press them together with both hands while simultaneously closing the outer panel. The pilot nudged me again, patience. Essential. The second the panel snapped shut, a wave of energy washed over me. It didn't hurt, it felt like plunging into freezing water, except the water was information. Suddenly, the pilot's mental guidance wasn't just diagrams, it was context. I saw moments, thousands of years flashing by. Human civilization wasn't an evolution, it was a garden. We were being tended, gently pruned, and guided toward a specific outcome. The realization hit me hard. Every major religious figure, every prophecy, every miracle was just a necessary course correction. A way to adjust the garden without alarming the plants. I saw the pilot's kind, the tenders, watching from the void, patiently waiting for us to reach a maturity they had predetermined. The shock of it forced me to my knees. The pilot stepped closer, its silver lines now glowing brightly, a beautiful constellation against the obsidian. It used its mental voice again, clearer this time. We appreciate your assistance. Your mind is resilient. It wasn't praise, it was observation. It showed me an image of Earth, not as a blue marble, but as a dense, complex neural network, pulsating with energy. I tried to ask a question, something about what comes next, but the pilot cut me off. It knew my thought before I formed the words. The experiment must continue without interference. It indicated that my exposure to the repair process, the energy transfer, had irrevocably marked me. I had gained context that I was never meant to have. I was now an anomaly. This is when the paranoia started. Knowing I was a marked anomaly. I suddenly remembered all the unusual helicopters I'd seen circling my property lately, the static on my police scanner, the strange, fast-moving lights over the mountains that I had always dismissed as flares. They weren't just flares. They were monitoring the garden. And they were about to monitor the weed. The pilot, sensing my shift in perspective, moved toward the open panel of the sphere. It reached inside and retrieved a small object, the size of a walnut, but crystalline and humming with the intense blue-silver light I'd seen earlier. This was the artifact from the beginning. It held it out to me. A fraction of what was necessary for the repair it conveyed. Now, it is yours. As I took the artifact, the remaining knowledge flowed into me, a final, devastating realization about time. That our linear progression is an illusion. The pilot's kind doesn't move forward or backward, they simply exist across all moments simultaneously. The universe isn't a timeline, it's a massive, static sculpture, and we, the plants, are temporary moving lights on its surface. The pilot then walked, smoothly and gracefully now, into the sphere. The opening sealed silently behind it, leaving no seam. I was left alone in the vast, dusty garage, holding the artifact that represented the biggest secret in human history. The sphere began to vibrate, emitting a low, powerful hum that shook the foundations of my shop. The exit was not a takeoff. It was an erasure. The humming escalated, reaching a pitch too high to hear, then simply stopped. The sphere didn't move or lift, it vanished. Not slowly, not quickly. Just gone. The air it displaced rushed back in, knocking over a stack of oil drums. 1 minute it was there, solid and massive. The next, it was only the lingering smell of ozone and fresh rain. I checked the area repeatedly. No scorch marks, no residual energy signature my simple multimeter could detect. Just the imprint in the dust where 8 feet of impossible material had rested. I was left with the artifact and the knowledge that everything I thought was random or chaotic was, in fact, precisely monitored. And I was the only person on Earth who knew the parameters of the cage. That's why the phone is foiled. That's why I haven't contacted anyone. They monitor the flow of information. I gained the knowledge, the understanding of the garden, but the artifact itself is a beacon. It's too powerful to get rid of, and too dangerous to keep. It's the cost of helping them. It reveals everything, and in doing so, it alerts the others, the cleanup crew, the ones who enforce silence. I hear the low frequency now, definitely. Not a rumble, but a deep, vibrating hum coming from miles away, moving closer. It's methodical. They aren't looking for the sphere anymore, they are looking for the anomaly. They are looking for the thing that holds the truth. I just wanted to fix an engine, maybe tow a few trucks. Now I hold the universe's remote control, and someone is coming to take it back. I'm uploading this now, just in case. If the humming stops, you know they got me. If it stops, then they succeeded in cleaning up their little garden. But at least one seed of knowledge will have escaped the boundaries of the cage. Listen to the things you dismiss, the shadows you ignore, the lights you call flares. They are always here. And sometimes, they need a mechanic.